Hi there, everyone. My name is Nicholas King, and what you are watching now is a little bit of a passion project for me, but I hope offers value to you. And what this is really something I've been procrastinating on for a long time and been putting off for a while. But with the physical restrictions that we all have, although traumatic for many, is also beneficial because it buys us some time back into our lives and helps us pursue those things that we maybe haven't been pursuing and gives us that time back. And so what this is I want to bring a series of interviews to you dealing with those topics that kind of really matter in our lives. And what's really expedited this for me is as this crisis has unfolded, those things that are mattered in our lives have bubbled through as absolute priorities and critical things to deal with. One of the first things that we're going to have to deal with as individuals, and that can be a reaction to the crisis that we're experiencing, is how we deal with this mentally, what our mind attitude will be like. So in this first interview, I want to bring to you and introduce you to a man by the name of Greg Gardiner. He is a fascinating individual and has been a psychologist for the last 30 years. He has dealt with some of the most troubled minds that you can imagine. And as I say to people, he's freed people from the tyranny of their own minds. And one of the first things that we're going to have to deal with as individuals is how we react mentally to what is going on right now. And so I can't think of a better person to introduce you all to, who will provide a perspective and does indeed provide a perspective and practical tools as to how we become aware of some of the issues that we may encounter, and certainly help us guard our own mind and protect our mind attitude. So I really hope that you enjoy this interview and it helps you and anyone that you share it to, because it does give me absolute pleasure to introduce you all to the one and very only Mr. Greg Gardiner. Mr. Greg Gardiner, welcome to the first episode of our series.
Hello, Nicholas. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's awesome to be able to step into this space with you and unpack this topic with you.
Yeah, and me too. It's great to be able to share this space with you as well. And we'll be in this space for the next 60 minutes, which is going to go really, really quickly. And so I want to kind of really double down on what we're here to discuss. And we'll get to that really, really shortly. But for those listening or watching, I wish everyone knew you, but not everyone does. So can we kind of start with your history to where you are now and what you're doing now? Can we start there?
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation to outline that. I guess I was one of those guys who was always interested and curious about people's behaviour, and I was one of those people who would have said maybe 1,000 times, I'd love to study psychology one day. I'd love to study psychology one day. Even when I worked in another industry, in another field, in another time. And I started in the field of engineering and steel fabrication. And just one day after I repeated that in a conversation with someone else again, something just went off in my mind. It's like, okay, when are you going to do something about it? And so that just started curiosity that took me towards what would I do if I was to be able to prepare, if I could possibly in the future play any part to be able to help somebody in this area and follow my curiosity, what would that look like? And, to wrestle with all the impossibilities of that. And yet, over time, just a little by little by little, and just a little study here, a little study there, a little bit of endurance and perseverance in between. And little by little, I was able to step across from engineering over into counselling, and took up some very challenging positions there, and that enabled me to work with some of the most broken people in this country. And I know that I put out my feelers and got some specific feedback about that over the years, and I know that to be true. And even though they were difficult years, it sort of prepared me for the next stage. And then I was able to move across and work in different populations and work with different client groups. And then in the latter decade or so, able to working with adult clients, and quite incredibly what I found working along the way, I was able to adapt into working with adults and adult issues. And quite remarkably, what I found to be true working with young people was also true working with adults. And I found the same thing that kept young people alive also enabled adults to thrive. And so that's given me a bit of a cutting edge, having tested my ideas and my strategies on the most broken. That sort of sets me in a good place to work with various client groups along the way. And, you know, I've always been not only what was curious about human behaviour, but I was also curious and always scanning the horizon for the next best idea that would help somebody. And wonderfully, I was able to come into psychology from applied psychology, which is the science of human engagement. And I was able to learn those communication, human engagement skills and interpersonal skills. And I was able to take that into my profession, and then later years go on to the study of the science of psychology and human behaviour, and finish my training there. So I've had a very wonderful journey, a rich journey of working with some very complex situations, which I guess gives me more confidence today to apply my own ideas. And, we've had some wonderful results, and we've been able to appreciate all the incredible people we've met along the way. It's been quite a remarkable thing.
Yeah, you've been on an amazing journey, and maybe we can highlight at some point how I've come across that journey myself. But let's just get into this a little bit. You're talking about, so you've come on a journey. So where's that journey led you? So what do you do at the moment, currently?
Okay, we have a clinic on the Gold Coast in Australia, and we've been doing that, involved with the clinical practice for the last 12 years, and we have several psychologists working with us and offering a broad range of psychological interventions. Starting with mild anxiety all the way through to schizophrenia. And we see that these very simple skills and ideas will come across seem to be effective right across the spectrum of the severity of people's conditions. And we do mainstream commonalities of anxiety, depression, etc. But also some of the concepts we've developed enable us to have quite a broader range of application and effective treatment of a whole range of people. And suffering is quite a big thing for the human organism. And even though where we're at might be normal, many people suffer quite considerably in their own minds or in their own life environments. And quite wonderfully, we've been able to assist people with those issues across time, and help people move from whatever normal was to a much better one.
It's beautiful, actually. And what's has come in is that a term that's kind of factored into my life for a period of time is the term thinking mechanics, and I've realised that in fact that's kind of what you are. You're a mechanic of thinking. You are a thinking. People come to you to kind of tune themselves up, so to speak, and that's kind of the amazing work.
Yes, exactly.
That you do.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is phenomenal what you do, and so we're getting together today. I'd love to kind of just expand on the whole psychology field, but what we're specifically wanted to come together about today is obviously this very unique, and I say unique, a colleague of mine said, I'm so tired of hearing the word unprecedented, I'm going to replace it with unique. So we're going to say, let's say unique. We're in a unique situation. We're at the beginning of April 2020. For those that do happen to listen to this recording at some point in the future, and the world is gripped by an invisible threat in the form of a virus, and there's multiple reactions to that, and many of those reactions to it will begin inside people's heads. And so if we were to talk about your day to day, which I look at as being just phenomenal what you do for people in terms of being either the mechanic of their thoughts or what I've called a thinking coach. Let's just go back to normal day by day. There is no virus. What would be the kind of issues that you're dealing with kind of on a day-to-day basis with people that step through your clinic door?
Yeah, I like what you say there about unique, Nicholas. And, even though the stimulus and the environmental stimulus of this crisis is unique, crisis is common. There are many commonalities about people's condition and human condition, and there are many things that can throw people into crisis. And that's generally where we're working with people. People don't even need to know my name really until their life becomes chaotic and their life is thrown into chaos by some, whatever the next most craziest thing that can happen in someone's life is. And, it's generally them when a family member or a friend or give you someone's name or a name like mine. But generally, even though the virus is it's a new thing to be happening at a global level, it's not unnormal. It's not uncommon for this to happen regionally or from different nations. But the experience of chaos is quite a common one for the human journey of life. And so even though the stimulus might be different, our journey with people, path that we would lead people along, or even the skills or the skill upgrade that we'd offer people, is not going to be a whole lot different. People can suffer in their own mind. And it's generally because of inefficiencies or just not an entirely healthy or helpful way of perceiving what's going on around you. And so we're generally helping people move beyond the initial spook or the initial fright that you might take from a new stimulus or a new trigger, and be able to move beyond that and to, I guess, somewhat normalise it and help people move beyond that. And also offer perspective. You need to be able to offer people perspective. Now, that's great, but that's something that one of the reasons it's important is because, younger people don't have a lot of perspective because they've not done enough laps of the pool of what they've needed to endure to this point. And so that's one of the things that, more mature age people can do in the community right now is just offer young people perspective, because this is beyond their frame of reference. It might be beyond your frame of reference too, but you might have already been through something that caused chaos and drama and distress in your life, and maybe, don't be afraid to share how you got through that, because that'll be very encouraging to a lot of people.
There's so much there in what you just said I could unpack, and I'm thinking that those that are listening probably let's expand a little bit on the perspective piece. And so when you talk about giving people perspective, how can someone work on their own perspective? If I am a young person, what can I do as an individual to help my own perspective, and why, from your perspective, is perspective important? Why is perspective so important when it comes to these things?
So without perspective, you could think it was the end of the world. When really, it's really just the end of life as you knew it. It's not the end of the world. So the human mind, just in its own natural functioning, will be fatalistic. It'll function from polarities. If it's not good, it's bad, and it's no good. And so, however, we need to have more gears in the gearbox than go and stop. You need to be able to normalise what's happening. And one of the positive things about an issue like this virus experience is that we're all in it together.
Yeah.
Now, in normal hardship, you feel like you're in hardship on your own, and you could compare your situation, for example, with, lucky them, they're living the good life, and I'm over here struggling and suffering. But with this one here, that's really not going to be a feature, because you can't feel sorry for yourself because your neighbour's in the same situation. And so that one situation there, even though it might be difficult, harmony and unity, remains. So we're human beings. We're relational beings. We love relationships. We live best in relationships that thrive best on. We need to feed our relationships with good quality, communication. And one thing that is communicated when you look next door is they're in exactly the same situation, and that's I'm finding somewhat reassuring for a lot of people.
It is, but then you touch on one thing that is limiting at the moment, and that is connection with people.
Yes.
And the social distancing, of which I'm finding, even people in the street, some people, not all, but some actually do a bit of a circle around you as you're walking down the street. And it's a bit like, oh, what am I? Do I smell a little bit? What's wrong with me? So I agree with you. There's a comforting that we're all going through it together, but then there's also this need of, I think people are beginning to understand, oh, it's nice to have that connection. So yeah, I mean, and that those kind of things, the effect of that is your thoughts are influenced initially.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So is there anything that individuals can do to begin to, as these thoughts appear that then maybe not used to having, because again, it's a unique situation. What can people begin to do to, I suppose, help themselves in that regard, if they do find that their mind is beginning to behave in a way they're not used to?
Yes, I think you're doing very well there, Nicholas, to outline the definition of terms about this. And we were fed through various circles the term social distancing, but I think it's more helpful to break that down to physical distancing. And so we do need to keep a physical span around ourselves and sort of protect our own personal space, as it were. But and I guess whenever there's a significant change, it can take a little while for people to compensate or to reset the way they communicated. And I wouldn't be surprised if people are finding they're actually able to pick up the phone and they're starting to actually have probably even more meaningful connections with people through this period than they may well have had before. And because of a bit of a compassion and concern, what I'm observing is that people are reaching out to each other. Family members who, really wouldn't call you unless there was, unless the earth fell in on their end or unless some great tragedy. Some families are great communicators and others who really just inform each other about funerals and weddings and things and not much else in between. But even in that sort of family dynamic where people are emotionally distant, I see shifts. I see shifts out of just common decency, reaching out, checking in with family members. So that there is a difference. However, as you allude to there, Nicholas, that what goes on in your mind through a difficult time is different. And I don't know if anyone there if you guys have ever lived through a national disaster, and maybe maybe you got blown out or flooded out or burnt out or. There's a lot of crazy. It's crazy. This is a crazy country to live in, this one, Australia.
It is.
If you haven't been flooded out or burned out or washed out or blown out, you haven't been around very long. And but it's an incredible thing that happens in a natural disaster. It's an incredible leveling experience. It's we can strut around because we've got money in the bank. We can strut around because we've money in our pocket. But when there's a natural disaster, it's a very you talk to your neighbour again. It gives you permission to wander around in your pajamas and things that, other decorums and other status things that we would try and maintain seem to get dissolved and we come back to treating each other as people again. And so I see that happening. And I come across people who are a bit spooked by what's going on and stretch them. And when they're more anxious now or more triggered or maybe you've got a tension in your tummy or in your chest that you can't get rid of. And, there's some strategies to be able to detox and release that energy from your body. But I think this entire scenario is going to remind us and remind humanity of who we really are and our desperate need for connection. And even though there's physical distancing required, we do have other options. And I think people are using them. My observation is that people are using them very well. I think we still need to check in on elderly parents and family members.
Yeah.
because of their skill set may not give them confidence to do some of those things. But yeah, I'm even though there's a bit of adjustment, even though there's a bit of a feel like the floor just dropped out of the lift a little bit when we can't do what we used to do. You know, I'm starting to see some pretty positive things coming as humanity starts to engage in a richer level.
Yeah, and so this is I suppose taken what I thought where we were going to go in a different way, and I think it's great. So in other words, what you're saying though is then what we're going through is actually to a certain extent good from a thinking perspective, because it's realigned the way that we are engaging with people, and that's healthy.
Yes. In the midst of that, you know, there are people are experiencing anxiety en masse, I would say.
Right.
And people are still, you know, not sure about this. You know, we don't respond well really to uncertainty. And but it will allow many people to reset their lives, and we've got to duck into this. We've got to sort of drop into the experience of this, and we're getting shut down. Our mobility is reduced, and all this type of thing. But you know, a lot of people are going to do you know, behavior, you know, workplace resets, relationship resets, even values resets. As you sort of more adjust your life to more accurately align with what you think is okay and what you don't. And certainly a place of incredible reflection. You know, a lot of the time what we find in psychology is that we just live mindlessly, just spinning along, not really connected to what's going on here and now. But I tell you what, people are paying attention right now, and it is causing some anxiety, but that anxiety is causing reflection. And you know, and I trust that will also lead to people being honest about their feelings. Hey, you know what? I feel this today. Hey, excuse me, you got a moment? I just want to, you know, I realise I'm actually feeling like this right now. Oh, wow, so am I. And to have that sort of connected, but at a humble level. Humble, respectful engagement rather than a more superficial, you know, let's go, you know, look, excuse me, get out of my way. You're interrupting the rhythm and the frequency of my life. You know, if it's important, email me or give me a text. We're going to say, get out of my way. I'm on my way. I've got to go and do something. And now that we've had the do taken away from us, well, it'd be incredible to see what people are, for example, are you comfortable with who you are? If the do gets ripped out from underneath you and you can't do anymore, well, where does that leave you? Does it leave you being comfortable with who you are as a person, or are you realizing right now that you're actually a human doing? You're not a human being at all. So, you know, some of that might be challenging. So I just dropped that into this conversation, Nicholas, just to lubricate the passage of people's reflection there, and just see where that penny drops.
Oh, there's lots of pennies dropping, Greg, and I'm kind of excited where we can go with this. And I do want to really double down, though, for those that you know, are listening or watching this, and you know, maybe are grappling, because we're talking about. Really, this is kind of forcing us to maybe behave and be away, stop doing and being. I love that. Stop being a human doing and start being a human being. And part of that process is anxiety, but that can be potentially extinguished a little bit. And a word I've learned, all based from the work you did with me, was around the power of confession and yes. Confessing. But when we're doing human doings, we may have an issue with being vulnerable in that way. But now, because yes. we know everyone else is going through the same boat, we're all confessing. And so let me get it back to, from a psychology standpoint, is that the case? Is confessing something going on in your head a way of dealing with it from a psychological standpoint?
Yes. Okay. Well, if you track the path of us becoming a human doing, well, you recognize that when you're not comfortable with yourself and you're not comfortable with your situation, one of the first things we're going to attempt to do is busy ourselves to fill our mind with things so that we're not confronted with ourselves. And, what I found over the years is that many of us are not actually really comfortable in their own thoughts. And because of that discomfort, or even more than that, we don't actually feel safe there because our thoughts are attacking, our thoughts are brutal, our thoughts are confronting and certainly condemning. Some key words that I've come across that seem to be, I've never had anyone deny that this was true, that their mind was actually condemning, their mind was self-punishing and persecutory. If you do one small thing in error, or some one thing that's not perfect, and you will punish yourself in your mind, relentlessly. And that's just the default system of the human mind. And when pressure's on, like in a time like this, that type of behaviour is magnified. When you step over into uncertainty, your mind will become stressed. Your mind, and you stay stressed long enough, and your mind will become depressed. I guess one of the truths I've found over the years is that a stressed mind will become a depressed mind. And the same is true for anxiety. You stay anxious long enough, you'll become depressed. And so an anxious, troubled mind, or a mind that's, or your thought life caught up in bothers or worries, you stay there long enough, and it seems to always produce the same thing. And so, and that leads us to some of the solutions that you seem to enjoy, Nicholas, in your time and during our discussions. The solution. I mean, I'll take a few moments there to point out the problems and the general default nature of the human mind. But quite incredibly, over the years, I've found that there are solutions to that.
Yeah, and now that my heart is beginning to beat real big now, because we're beginning to get down to the, we're peeling away the onion now, yes. And we're getting there, right? We've got through the first few layers, and this is the magic of what you do for people. So, okay, so an anxious mind and a stressed mind, in your 3 decades of experience dealing with, as I've got to understand it, some of what I call it, some of the most troubled minds you can imagine, and bringing, and the way I've described the work that you do is you free people from their own mind.
Yes.
And what a freedom it is. But let's get down to this, because there's going to be people that are anxious, and so rightly, because of a job loss.
Yes.
There's going to be people that are stressed because they don't know if the landlord's going to let them not pay some rent for the next couple of months, right?
Yes.
So you've got a stressed, and someone that's been maybe chronically stressed for a while, chronically anxious for a while, and they come through the door of your clinic. Are you able to talk us through kind of at any level that you're comfortable with, how you begin to work with someone like that, what you begin to try and help them do? What are some of the tools you've developed, I suppose, is the question.
Well, there's a few templates we help people understand and perceive their situation. We offer people templates of understanding. One of the templates people seem to understand or seem to appreciate is a template we developed many years ago. When you go to chaos, I would generally help people understand the only reason people ever come to see someone like me or want to know my name is because of, when chaos hits your life, and the chaos is driven by drama. And if you can't stay in a chaotic place or disequilibrium for very long before your life is thrown in panic. And so we offer people templates of understanding so they can frame up their situation, so they can go, that's how it happens every time. Absolutely. So that's just a very simple normalization process that we offer people, and understanding there, and also to recognise that everyone has a measure of coping, and it's different for everybody. And and it's finite. I believe it's finite. Everyone has a measure of coping with which to do life. If it's about that long, that's where you get. And and everything that ever happens to you, every emotional hit, every knockdown, every setback, every emotional woundedness you carry. It's like another file in that filing cabinet. And, something like coming along like a virus scenario and losing your position and having your rental in jeopardy, that's enough to soak up whatever you had left for most people. And so, once again, just to normalise the situation seems to be helpful. And but also another issue that people seem to find helpful is also just a way to vet your thoughts. And it seems to be, once again, a default setting of the mind. I guess a lot of what I'm doing is, if you can imagine, we just lifted the bonnet here on your human mind, Nicholas. We're just sort of standing around the car looking under the bonnet, and I'll just point out bits and pieces. But if you can imagine that, what if our mind spends a lot of time, or too much time really, thinking about things that they cannot control and things that they can't change?
Yeah.
Now, how much time did the listener today spend, fantasizing, dreaming about, meditating on, ruminating on? And when I say meditating, if you've ever worried about something, in other words, you've just worried over and over and over and over. This way you worried about, this way you worried about that. Then you flicked it over and it's, in 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, then you're worried about it in another one. Well, in most parts of the world, that's called meditation. And so it's once again the mind being fixated, on why rather than deal with what. It's the mind fixated on and all the time that we spend meditating on things we can't control or change. It's like lifting up a bucket of our own energy and our own vitality and pouring it into a black hole in the ground. There is no possible good that can come of it. There are some things we need to think about. We need to plan, strategize ahead, think about maybe we need to talk to the landlord, go, okay, we probably need to go and start talking to a real estate agent now, or start going back, talking to the bank, or maybe I need to go and talk to my partner and just have a very real conversation about the reality of right now. It might be unpleasant, it might be difficult, and to try and tune everybody into the reality of the world. Another version for the children, of course. We don't need to load children up with things from adult concepts from the adult world. We need to protect their emotional development. So there's things we need to do, but there's a whole range of things we don't need to do. And I would suggest to you, if you just stopped thinking, meditating about things you can't change or control right now, you'd have enough energy to run around the block several times because of it. You'd be in surplus all of a sudden. And also just one other point there, I'd say things that people to look out for. And as I say, I just offer you these ideas to the listeners, because I just see the relief on people's faces when we share these. And so, over the years we've stumbled across, ancient truths and wonderfully be able to bring them into the here and now. And one of the other dimensions I found is very helpful is to get away from thinking about what's happening to you as right or wrong. Stop thinking about the world in terms of right and wrong, good and bad. And particularly when it comes to decision making, is this the right thing to do? Is that we get stuck in a polarity between something's good and bad, north and south, black and white.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there is no right and wrong, but when it comes to some of the decisions you need to make right now, you're not going to have top shelf, some idealistic ideas to choose from. They're not going to be the best. And so try and determine for you and your family and you as a person, what is the most helpful thing you can do right now, and to let go of right and wrong, because for many people, we spend so much time trying to do the right thing. One, it's exhausting, but it's paralyzing. We spend half our life paralyzed and terrified of doing the wrong thing. Step forward, be proactive, do the most helpful thing, and I trust that idea helps you save a lot of emotional energy and maybe feel less sick in your tummy or less distressed in your chest, letting go some of those old thought patterns that really aren't helpful right now.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And I mean, because really what you're going through is the same advice you would give to someone without this very unique global issue going on. But
yes,
it seems that potentially there's just more people now who are exposed to the potential of developing a mental well-being issue where this advice is something that would resonate with them.
Yes.
And it's I find that fascinating, that duopoly between right and wrong, bad and good. And it seems that our mind gravitates towards the worst case scenario.
Yes. I mean, how many times you've been around to someone's place for dinner and they're apologizing for the dinner before it starts. They're apologizing for the way the house is. They're apologizing for the dog didn't get washed and the dog didn't get clipped. And, I'm sorry that, I'd normally wash the tablecloth 7 times before people come, but, it's not in that upper echelon thing. And because it's not perfect, it's like 0 to 100. It's like, because it's not perfect, it's no good. And so, there's a lot of benefit in being able to put a few more gears in your gearbox, and one, to be kinder to yourself and less punishing, but just to be a little bit more, have other gears you can function in. If you've got 10 gears, you don't always need to function in 10th gear. I mean, you've got other ones. You can calm down a little bit and slow down a little bit and just adjust and adapt. But why would you do that? Why would you adjust? Why would you adapt? Because punishing yourself for the meal not being perfect, we create our own suffering in our own mind. People just come over for dinner. That's all. They don't care whether the plate was washed or was reused, or but it's understandable, but not helpful. Yeah. And so do that which is helpful. Save yourself some emotional energy. Reduce your suffering. And live a more efficient life. Now, we just happen to be having this topic and this conversation around this global crisis, but, these are things that I would share with people that help people in the day-to-day lives. But nothing, why would the same thing that I would talk about with people normally, why would that be relevant now? We're still human beings. We're still human beings that fall in love, and maybe love goes well, or maybe there's tension in a relationship. We're still human beings that like each other's approval, and maybe you got adequate approval, maybe you didn't. So we're feeling disapproved of or rejected. Human beings, doesn't matter whether you're been in this country for 100 years or one, your emotional needs were very similar to the person standing alongside you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you could probably tell, listening to Greg, that there's a lot more underneath. I mean, for you, I think we're just skimming the surface. So I'm gonna move one more layer. I'm gonna get down and really deep, because I think this is just gold, and you can understand why. I look at Greg almost like a thinking coach, a mechanic of your thoughts. I want to go back just to a comment that you made about the why and the what. I didn't want that to escape.
Okay.
And so can you just expand on that? You said, I think, that people focus on the why, not the what. Is that what you said?
Yes.
What does that mean?
I think when tragedy strikes, it's so overwhelming. And the human mind can only take so much. And I think the why, in some situations, is an off-ramp to avoid what is happening. And it's easy to think about or to busy ourselves wondering about things we don't have an answer for. And they're not likely to be an answer for in some situations. It's once again, just a natural default, like an off-ramp off the freeway, rather than stay on the difficult road that's in front of you. And so I think that's one piece of why we focus on why. Sometimes we do need to sit down, we do need to be analytical, and we do need to come up with solutions. But it's interesting how we focus on why at times when there is no why. There's no answer to that. And so, you might notice that some of the things that affront you in life, in the journey of life, are overwhelming. push them into crisis, very uncomfortable. Might be the loss of a job, it might be the loss of a relationship, it might be the loss of, a family member through some other tragic or death situation in family. And that pushes our minds really to the maximum of what our emotional resilience can bear. And however, I've noticed that we can sort of park in why, wondering why. I mean, you might have even been this week wondering why. Why are they doing that? Why are the people doing this? Why is the government? Why are police doing that? Why would they even say that?
Yeah.
And we can sort of just have a natural loop where we allow ourselves to get bothered by things, one, we cannot change, we cannot control. And just as a way to cope through, I guess. But there's just a lot more that could be said about that. But generally happens in times when we're very vulnerable, generally happens in times when we're out of control, in great uncertainty. And just one of the commonalities of human form, really. But, we are masters of comfort and pleasure, and largely avoidant of discomfort and displeasure. So there's just a lot of pieces of human nature that sort of come together with that. But, I've heard people asking that question in the street. I've heard people asking that in the street, maybe in the bank. Why can't you give me the money? Your account's empty, sir. Why is it empty? Well, we don't have that answer for you. The truth is, the facts are that what you have in the bank is inadequate. And we can say, well, why? I want to speak to the manager. Why is it? And however, that may well, once again, in that scenario, be an avoidance scenario as well. And life can be stretching, you might notice.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And really what I'm hearing from you, though, is that for people to be aware that the default of human beings, human doings, but now human beings, is almost to go directly to the thing that they can't control and start asking why, versus going to the thing that they can control and beginning to take some action towards that.
Yes. And yet, that could be logically true, but not everyone all the time is proactive and taking responsibility or taking charge for the situation. Or we might go to why on our way to, maybe we may be not prognosticating, but procrastinating about getting on with what we need to do. And so we can park in why for a little while, buy ourselves a bit of time, catch our breath, and then get a wriggle on and get to it later on. But interesting. But it's a common thing that happens in life when we're confronted with something that's overwhelming, beyond our frame of reference, and where we have lost control. And that's where people are at right now with this virus thing. We feel out of control. And some people dive this way and some people dive that way. Some people dive out and start being proactive and there's a whole range of things. Maybe the proactive people are what's emptying our supermarket shelves. I don't know. But there's other people who've gone another way who have other expectations. But I'm sure everyone have a different story about their own journey between being stuck and spinning their wheels in their journey towards getting traction and starting to go somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I've already imagined, being a granddad and the grandkids going, "What were you doing when the COVID corona thing that I learned at school today? What were you doing, granddaddy?"
Yes.
And you think, well, it was a hard time, but there's so much there. So let's try and start looking at what are some of the practical things, because when we're saying, fine, I'm not going to focus on the why anymore. Why? I'm going to focus on kind of what is in my what's in my vision to control, or
Yes.
What's in my vicinity to control. But then we may, and I hope we do, for their sake, in terms of hearing what you have to say, people listening that are not in Australia and are in a country that is very restricted, like they are in their house and you're not going out. Whereas in Australia, God bless Australia, we're not that restricted yet.
Yes.
So when we're talking about the effect, that the one thing that certainly you taught me and I subsequently learned is the connection between mind and body, and body and mind, the other way around.
Yes.
And so what can we do? What are the what's? But factoring in the fact that we are physically restricted.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of what, and there's a lot of what's with a how-to message attached to it. And quite wonderfully, because we have worked with a whole range of very difficult situations, and I guess we'll probably be known regionally as a trauma therapist or a crisis therapist, and so some of the tragedies we've had come through our door, and the journeys we've been able to journey with people through very, very difficult and low and dark times, and we're doing that all day, every day of the week. And so we've learned over time, I guess, some things that are helpful to people and some things that are not. And so we've over time developed like a 3-pronged approach, like a 3-layered approach, not one idea, not two, but three. We'll assist people and with what I would refer to as an adult upgrade to your coping skills. And so, if same old would do it and cut it, well, you probably wouldn't be speaking to someone like me. And so by the time you get to, or you need to know someone like mine's name, you've generally been confronted with in life with something that's beyond you. You've never come across it before, you need help. And so we offer people 3 levels of strategy so that you can be using one during the day, during the evening, issues to address you at a physical form, at a mental form, within your emotional form, we look to equip people so you can come at whatever comes at you from multiple directions. You hit it so hard, the crisis won't know what happened to it. I was reminded of a thought today, Nicholas, in regard to boats and ships and sinking boats, etc. And it was a thought along the lines of, it's not the water outside the boat that is the worry. It's not the water. It's not what's going in your environment that is the issue. It's when water gets in the boat. It's when your environment comes within and contaminates and affects you within. Is when it can get a bit shaky. And so, most people learn their coping skills with which they're trying to cope through life. We learn them in a sandpit somewhere generally. And so it does really help people to come forward and people just seem to love some of the ideas that we share with them, and quite revolutionary steps. You've got to step yourself from being out of control, for example, at a mental level, and then stepping across to be able to put your mind under new management and put a sandwich board out the front under new management. I'm not doing it the way I said. I'm doing it different now. And so I can get a wriggle on and increase the efficiencies and the effectiveness of our thought life to move your thoughts away from working against you to be able to working for you.
Can we let's double down on that, because you know that's dear to my heart, and I'm going to let it out the cage now, in the sense that you gave me a phrase that you gave me permission to be able to use, but it's yours, it's your intellectual property, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it's taken me 6 years and I'm still learning how to best describe what it means, but let's get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Sorry to call you a horse, but let's just go on that bit. Your mind, your thinking is under new management, and this is now you coming into your own with the way you describe things. It's a beautiful thing, and I love that analogy with the ships and allowing the water to come in. It's just fantastic. You gave me a phrase: your mind doesn't know what to think. It believes whatever you tell it.
Yes.
And every time I say it, from 6 years ago to this day, it gives me goosebumps.
Yes.
Can you, Greg, please just say we're in a counselling session, you and I, just you and I, and you've said that. What got you to be able to say that? What does it mean? Can you help people and let people and describe what that means?
The phrase or the whole concept, understanding around that?
Both. Oh, but
Yes.
the latter, really.
Okay.
Putting some context around it.
Okay. Years ago, I was working with some very difficult client groups who were largely suicidal. Not just thinking about people who are actively suicidal. And I would have a very short amount of time to be able to turn people around. I would meet them suicidal, and my job was to keep them alive. And I knew for many of them that I had about a 15-minute window, 20-minute window to be able to turn the situation around. And I guess I was subjected to and confronted to some of the most destitute, fragile minds within a youth population. And we do. You meet people over the years when you can see that they're running out of reasons to live. And so many times I'd go home from work not knowing whether that person would be alive in the morning. There's one of those sort of younger therapists who drive away from work in tears, not knowing how this is all going to work out. And I do on many, many occasions just slamming the steering wheel and just crying out for strategies and things to keep people alive. And as I've done that over time, there were just things that have come to me. And very beautifully years ago, I developed this phrase that I started giving to people who are on the edge of their lives and actively suicidal. And the phrase was this: "Today's a good day, and I'm enjoying my life." Now, when you're in a great desperate place in life, that thought is either good news or it is the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard. But regardless of how it's received, I've generally been able to convince people or humour people to, look, I don't care what you think about it, I don't care what you believe about it, but I want you to say this until I see you next. Well, this is stupid. Can you say this? Can I get you to agree to keep saying this phrase, "Today's a good day," and use your first name in the front? Nicholas, today is a good day, I'm enjoying my life. Or Greg, today is a good day, I'm enjoying my life. Until I see you again. Oh, that's mad. Can you do that? Yes. And away they've gone. And those people were there the next morning, with smiles on their faces, with bells on. I didn't have to go up the street looking for them. They'd come and find me. Greg, you won't believe what happened to me. And I go, what? And in some of the occasions when I was just road testing this survival strategy, I didn't believe the results myself. However, over the years, I've become more courageous and more confident with this strategy, and to a point where I can see that this idea has saved many people from their own thought life, because their minds are largely out of control. And you don't know how out of control until you get a situation where tragedy turns up, or you get a global shutdown of all movements and activities, and all normality is gone. That's when your mind, if your mind's out of control, it'll be even more out of control now. And so there's never been a greater need, possibly, for people to be able to rein their minds in. As Nicholas, you said there before, one of the early paradigms I realised that the mind doesn't actually know what to think. Now, because the mind does all the thinking or processes all the thoughts, you would assume that the mind does actually know what to think.
Yeah.
But I realised that the mind is not actually able to regulate itself. It's just waiting on instruction. And because we don't give it instruction, our emotions do. Because through the void of cognitive input, your emotions do. And so therefore you feel something, so you just believe it. For example, I feel scared, therefore I must be. There must be something really terrifying going. No, it's just a feeling. However, we start this when we're young. With children, we learn to believe our feelings, and therefore when we're adults, we continue to do so. Well, what if it's just a feeling? And so that's part of the process we step through. But number one, as you say there, what if your mind doesn't actually know what to think? But more incredibly, what if your mind will believe whatever you tell it? Now, if you told your mind this morning that, oh my goodness, I'm over this, I can't put up with this anymore, well, your mind will believe that. and you'll send your mind off on a job for the day to prove to you why you're overwhelmed, you can't cope, you can't do this anymore. But if you said to your mind this morning or any time today that today's a good day, I'm going to enjoy my life, once again, you send your mind off with a job, and your mind goes something like, so what did he say? Oh, I think he said today's a good day, I'm enjoying it. What? That's mad. And your mind will tear off. And I guarantee you, after a short while, your mind will start to come back and prove to you why that is true. Because it doesn't know. Nicholas, when you realise how fickle the human mind is, you could start to deductively research just how important faith and belief to the human organism really is. And I believe right now in this crisis that a lot of our values, a lot of what we believe in has been shaken. And people need to know ways to strengthen themselves and to be able to anchor themselves right now to stay strong.
Yeah, you're getting me now. You're getting me now, because it's just gold. And just to let listeners know, we started off in first gear. Greg is now getting into third gear. It's a 6-gear engine, just to let you know. And we've only got about 10 minutes left. But you can see, the war wounds that have developed these strategies around the intricacies of our thought life and how our thought life influences our entire world. That's what you taught me through telling me that phrase. But let me get back to a couple of things. So I want to touch on, you were talking about, I just want to clarify for those listening, you were talking about those 3 strategies before. And so one of those strategies you're talking about, one of those mental strategies was that phrase. That was one of the strategies.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Incredibly, years ago, we found that the reason that phrase is so important to the human organism and so vital is that we stumble across this ancient knowledge and we realize that what you say out of your mouth actually overrides what you think. And, I ran around with a copyright sticker for a little while. I was going to copyright that. But, at further research, I realized that this knowledge has been known, back through the eons of time and is recorded in many, many places. And maybe a little bit like the rings of the Lord of the Rings, or things can be lost. Things can be lost from mainstream knowledge for a long period of time. But I've certainly it's been delightful to unearth this old knowledge when you're around realizing that your speech, when you speak, we actually release the creative power of our tongue where we can potentially create the worlds that we want rather than live in fear of the one that we don't want. So right now in this scenario, minimize your exposure to the news, because you'll have people prognosticating and speaking over you, the problem. And so be alert, don't put your head in the sand, be alert, be aware, but spend your time speaking out solutions for your own mind and your own family, and speak about what you're about to do, and don't focus on what you can't do, focus on what you can control and focus on what you can change. And as you start to speak creatively, you'll recognize that a whole range of things in regard to your fearfulness and your level of escalation of fearfulness and panic will start to change. And so be aware of the problem, yes, but you do not need to be an evangelist of the problem. You don't need to know about all the latest data and statistics. So, I really encourage you to be vague about your knowledge about the problem, but be really focused and specific about your knowledge of the solution. And that's the beauty and the wonder of what you've been prompted to do here today, Nicholas, to engage interests you've got. If you can actively speak into the solution on some of these global issues, but are also very powerful, just as generically powerful in any other given day of the week when someone kicks their toe or someone dings the car. The same strategy can be used in that sort of level of discomfort as well.
Yeah, this is it's so funny because I've been writing notes. I didn't mean to, because we're videoing it, so a lot of people are going to see the silver hairs appearing on the top of my head. But I had to, and the big note I wrote to myself was the power of your words, and it's just something that's not spoken about. If it is spoken about, though, the whole personal development industry, of which I subscribe to, don't get me wrong, but certainly, the whole thing around affirmations.
Yes.
And I think sometimes that can be a little bit, can be transformed into something, it's almost like, the wheat bead being changed and transformed into flour. It's kind of far removed from its original state.
Yes.
Right, but there's truth to it. But what you're saying, but specifically what you're saying though, is it's not about putting your head in the sand, but it's about using what is a marvelous tool given to all of us that isn't just to consume food.
Yes.
And it is to, rather than, and it's not to be ignorant to the problem, but it's to be more aware that what comes out of your mouth has an effect on ultimately then what you're going to be experiencing. So why would you focus on the problem?
Yes, and I would say that it's quite clearly within our research that what you say out of your mouth affects every microbe, every organism of your body. When you speak, your body responds to your words at an atomic level.
Wow.
And if you can go along to a progressive relaxation, have someone speak over your calf muscles, speak over, and you can feel your body relaxing and something other. What if you could speak over more? Well, what if your words are more powerful than we realize? We learned to speak when we were around 2 years of age, and by the time the kid's about 3 years of age, we tell them to be quiet. And but we can sort of lose. I think we can lose sight of the what's the word, of the sacredness of our speech. And when you lose sight of the sacredness of anything, something also I learned many years ago, Nicholas, when the purpose of something is unknown, abuse is inevitable. And when you don't know what your words are for, well, you could use them for abusing your neighbour. You could sort of speak harshly to children, do all sorts of things. But words were not for that. Words are, they are creative. It's a creative component of the human form. And I repeat myself. I spoke a phrase there before. The spoken word is, it's far better to speak out what you want in life rather than live in fear of the world that you don't want. And I every day I'm refreshed with the power of this knowledge. We see it acting out in thousands of clients, thousands and thousands of consultations over the years, where what we're talking about here right now is proven true, time after time after time after time. And so when it's true, regardless of what someone believes, regardless of belief, regardless of gender, regardless of age, when it's true across time, well, you've stumbled across an ancient truth that is true both for a person's form, emotional form, physical form, and spiritual form. So I encourage people to road test this idea and see where it takes them.
Oh, it's just brilliant. And I just want to repeat. So when the purpose is unknown, abuse is inevitable.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's true. That's across everything and everywhere. When, for example, if you don't know what the purpose of your motor vehicle is, you don't know what purpose of lubrication the motor vehicle is, you don't understand the purpose of something, well, it's just wide open for a bit. If you don't know what the purpose of driving at the same speed together, you don't know, if you don't realise why we all need to travel 100 kilometres, well, it's looking to get people safely from one area to another. But for other person who doesn't see that, they might think it's just holding me up and it's in my way, and they will abuse the purpose of something, for example, and therefore increase the likelihood of difficulty. And but that's true at a community level. It's true at an organisational level. It's also true at an individual, purposeful level.
And,
a good, powerful thing to consider.
No, it's brilliant, and I'm going to loop it back again. A comment that you made just a minute ago about people speaking what they, speak what you do want, because you have had now a few decades of experience seeing. Well, hold on a minute. What someone is saying with their mouth, there's evidence of that having effect on the outcome for them. And so looping back to what you were saying before, at least now this time that we have in our homes with our families gives us time to reflect.
Yes.
And begin to focus more on. So in this time, so is one of the strategies then practically that people can reserve some time for is to actually begin now, if they haven't before, or maybe it slipped a little bit, is to focus on when we are released from our homes and said virus has a vaccine or however we go about defeating it, that people should arm themselves with some actions that they're going to take when they have the freedom to do so, and prepare that now and begin to exercise the power of the words in order to get prepared.
Yes.
For that. Yes. Would that be a strategy?
Yeah, most certainly. Most certainly.
Yes.
There's one thing to establish something. There's not to establish a new skill, but there's another thing to maintain it too. Maintenance stage. Lock this in. Now, not everyone who hears that phrase grabs hold of it and runs with it for the rest of their lives. For you, Nicholas, you came with a different purpose. You were going somewhere. You were looking for clues. You were mining for the goal that you needed to be able to get on and do the journey of your life. But not everyone follows up. Not everyone does do things in an enduring way. And so, it's funny how when we are in crisis, we'll do things to get ourselves out of a crisis. As soon as we're comfortable again, we'll return to other low efficient ways of thinking. And what I'm sharing with people and listeners here today is, I guess I'm giving you ideas about, the life of the rich and famous, or I'm giving you clues on how to live an elite life, how to live at an elite level, how to get your mind to lift out of the mud, lift out of the grime, and to be able to come up and plane, and like the phoenix coming up out of the dust, get your mind up out of the dust and get it plane at a high level. And what I'm generally saying to people, if you went after that phrase, if you started chipping away at your mind and started chipping away, now you might laugh the first time you say it because it's the most stupid thing you've ever heard, but if you just kept chipping away, we know enough about neuroelasticity today to know that it could take you a week and a half to punch through, and for your brain to grow a neural pathway to carry that thought. So it could be a bit of work to do in the beginning. You could, even if you fell out of your chair with tears of hilarity rolling in your cheek, was the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, keep doing it. Keep it. The level at which you would push that away, or the level at which you would balk at that phrase, will give you immediate feedback back into your own life, just how toxic your own thoughts are. If that's hard to say, you know that your thoughts aren't up to that grade. If it's easier to say, you might think, I'm pretty close to the game here. But you can actually take your own. If you're sitting there right now thinking, oh my goodness, I am never going to say that. That is just too far off the chart. That will give you an idea, or like a dipstick under the bonnet, that will be able to plumb the depths of the toxicity of your own thoughts. And so even if it's weird, like the first time you ever picked up a big dumbbell, I don't know if you ever picked up a 20-kilo dumbbell. Many people, that's unthinkable. But I've seen people handing them to each other, 22 kilos, as if they were passing someone a towel. But it didn't feel like that the first time they picked it up. They had to do the work. If you do the work and you morph and you take your mind from its current distortion up until where, for example, that today's a good day and I'm enjoying my life is normal, and you can say that like a piece of cake and there's no discomfort, you haven't got some other voice in the back of your mind said, oh, that's bizarre, don't say that. If you can get rid of that, all that other chatter in the back of your mind that doesn't challenge that thought anymore, and you're emotionally comfortable with it, you've reached a level of equilibrium that you didn't have before, and then you can build on that and build on that and build. And you can come up with more elitist thoughts that can help lifting your mind to function up here rather than to be looking at your belly button at a thought level. And it's the journey, Nicholas. It's a journey from chickens to eagles.
See, there you go again.
We're eagles.
There you go again. Those poetic words. I think it's just a beautiful place for us to round up the discussion, I don't want to go without touching on something though. And so I'm going to remind people of the phrase, because I've got firsthand experience of going from a chicken, and I'm probably more of a eagle in the nest, but I'm ready to soar. I'm ready to soar. But today is a good day, and I'm enjoying my life. And I think we're going to have to come back again and have a, carry on the discussion, but more around how can we soar as eagles. We'll focus in on that. But one of the upgrades, well, in fact, it was what I heard you say, but in fact was actually an upgrade, was I was saying today is a great day. And I'm enjoying my life, and I didn't realize it was good. I just started with great and ran with that.
Yes.
And so I can generally say that I said it 100 times a day. In fact, I probably said it 1,000 times a day for a week, and it is transformative from personal experience. It's been a fascinating discussion, and if nothing else, I think if I will round it up as a listener, because I've been listening more than thinking about us doing this discussion, and that is that you're more in control than what you think you are.
Yes.
And that you're and let's go with what you just said, because it's a confronting reality, but I think people are at a point of being willing to hear this stuff now. In the business of life, maybe not, but now we've got the time to hear it.
Yes.
And that is that if you find it difficult, and you've got to be honest with yourself, if you find it difficult to get those words out of your mouth, today is a good day, and I'm enjoying my life, then it gives you an indication as potentially that the toxicity of your thinking pattern.
Yes. Yes.
And that's something to be very aware of.
It's very confronting. But it's a quick test. Immediate feedback.
I love it. And I think that's going to, I'd imagine that is going to provide some guidance to quite a few people who I hope have the opportunity to hear what you've said today. Now, let's finish up. You have been on a journey to the extent where you've been able to, I suppose with no better term, take all of the wisdom that you've built over all of these years and all of these techniques and packaged it up, really.
Yes.
Did you want to quickly describe what you've been doing with that project? Because it's just it's brilliant. And for those that don't know, Australia, before we went through this, when we literally just finished like the whole country being on fire, what it seemed like anyway.
Yes.
And that obviously had massive ramifications for our farming community. So, Greg, what was it that you've been able to do?
Well, we've developed a program called the Get Your Head Right program a number of years ago in response to what we learned of the rural suicide. And so the last 5 years we've offered to rural and regional people largely the ability to get online and access 6 sessions with psychologists. And so after all these decades of work, we've had the still going out the back, and we've distilled down a lot of the truths and commonalities that we've discovered in the clinical setting, and we've made them available digitally and online. And so a number of years ago now, we were able to frame up and chunk down the equivalent of 6 crisis sessions with a psychologist, with myself, and put that online. And so you could, from the discreetness and the confidentiality of your own home or office, just tap in when no one else is looking, and tap in and reach out for help and get good quality help online. Now, because we've seen so many people in so much difficulty over time, we've created just a very humble little model here that we found that this is the information that people needed from us when they were in crisis, and we've just put it into a very beautiful 6-part series and made it available electronically, but also with a manual, a PDF handbook that goes with that, which you can download with the program. And that was just our response, just as a husband and wife couple here on the Gold Coast in Australia, to what we learned of rural suicide. And we knew we were doing good work in the clinic, but there are many people out there who would never find their way to us, who would never get to these solutions. So we just thought, well, what if we could save some? And that's just led us on a remarkable journey of I guess, doing some pioneering work about taking psychology and therapeutic intervention from face-to-face in the clinic into a digital space. And so we've been able to innovate and come up with some digital therapy programs there, and which allows a rapid response. In a lot of parts of Australia, if you got diagnosed with something today, it could be 5 months before you got to see somebody. But even beyond that, the reason we created this, we created the program and online access to it really for those people who were never going to come. Who were either unlikely or either unable. Maybe you live too far out of town. But, even people who do have access to town, they're still not coming. They'll still never, they spend money to service their chainsaw rather than go into town and get some self-care. So we didn't want anyone to miss out. We didn't want anyone to miss out on even some of the concepts I'm sharing with you. And we just found that if we put it online, this model of therapeutic intervention that we'd stepped across and we discovered many years ago, and but it's a proven step-by-step 6-step system of engaging or what it is to reach out to help. And but for anyone really doesn't. But even now we've found it's not just for rural people at all. It's for anyone who just can't get there. And perfect for right now when you're stuck in your home. It's like it was created for right now, for people who can't get out of their home. You can actually go online, log into it. We even a few years ago developed this other idea of this. We put the program on USB, and so a few years ago we did that, and that just made it so much more tangible. I'm not going to send you to a website. I'm going to put a USB in your hand. I'm going to teach you how to plug it into your machine. I'm not going to give you a website that you'd forget by the time you go back to the car. And the whole thing is on there. You plug it in. Doesn't matter whether you're an elderly person or a young person. People can plug a USB. And it will pop up on the screen. Intervention will pop up on the screen in front of you. We're express posting these all around the country. Very simple technology, but it looks like we're putting life-saving interventions in the hands of a whole range of people who would never normally have access to that sort of help.
It's brilliant work that you're doing, and it is. That was the mental note I made to myself, just how timely it is now. Whereas when you were doing the work just specifically for the farmers, we weren't here. People were still do it, but now the digital delivery, the whole training, speaking world has gone virtual. So it is timely that you have this program, and it isn't just for farmers. It's just that audience. I shouldn't say the audience. I'm sorry, but that community is what needed it then, which is now broadened in terms of your program being relevant for so many more people suddenly. And so I think it's great, Greg, and I just really appreciate your words, and I hope these words get delivered into the ears of many, many people through the delivery of this that we're going to do. So I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for all your words of wisdom, and I feel fortunate and lucky to be able to call you a friend in my own life. So,
thank you.
Was there any kind of parting words on your part for people that may are listening to this in their homes, in their bed, not able to go out for a run? Is there any last kind of parting words that you can give to people to encourage them?
Well, I initially, Nicholas, I appreciate your questions, and I appreciate your inquiry. I appreciate you caring enough about people to open up this topic and to be able to speak into the lives of people and to be able to broadcast a message of hopefulness rather than repeat other people's message of despair. If I could just revoke, I guess, the general overriding message of anxiety. Anxiety says, and will say to you in 1,000 different ways, that it's all over, it's all screwed up, and I can't do this, and it's too hard, and this is just too overwhelming. Can I say to you that wherever you're at right now will pass? The situation you're sitting in right now, and the level of uncertainty, and and the scale of uncertainty, you might be, if you were to, and I encourage you to scale yourself. I'm trying to scale people. What is your level of worry here? 0 to 10, give yourself a scale. And but whatever it is, whatever the level of uncertainty is, whatever the shakiness or distress you might have about a future life, can I say to you that wherever you're at right now will pass. Now, as I say that, many of you know that to be true. I'm just reminding you of something you already know. But I'm just saying it all the same. Anxiety says, we're here, mate, nothing you can do about it. It's all screwed up. What can you do? But allow me to say something that would override that. And you can say, well, how can you say that? I know it to be true. Wherever you're at right now will pass. It will pass. And also, can I also offer you another phrase in this period of time? We talked about the power of speech. And there will be dimensions day to day where you feel overwhelmed by what's going on. But can I also give you this phrase? And for you to repeat this, just mumble it under your breath, become a meditator with this. That the phrase is, I can endure all things.
I can endure all things.
I can endure all things. Can you feel that? Can you feel the resonance? Yeah. All I did was strung a few words together. It's just a sentence. But what I've just said is true. And there's something deep on the inside of you resonates with that. And so tune into the vibe or the frequency of that thought and create that reality within your person. And if you've heard a lot of the other and a lot of heard of negative, well, you might need to walk around and say that and say it 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 until you can displace the other. Now, even we were saying before, Nicholas, about today's a good day and enjoy my life. In some respects, well, that is a displacement strategy. Now, if darkness came into the room or where you are right now, how would you fix that? I mean, how do you fix darkness? Most people have got no problem with darkness. We know how to fix it. You're going to go and turn the light on, you're going to go and change the bulb, you're going to go and change the fuse. You know that you don't even worry about it. What sort of dark? You don't worry about, was that really dark? Was it that just that grey dark? No, we don't even go there. We don't quantify it. We go straight to the solution. And so if your mind's tangled up in bothers and worries right now, we just throwing a few ideas up in the air there. But another one of them is that might strengthen you is I can endure all things. Now, some older people know that's true because you've already done it. But for younger people, that might be news to you. But use it all the same. See where it takes you. Have fun with it.
Well, it's just a lovely way to finish off. Thank you, Greg, Mr. Greg Gardiner, for all of your wisdom today. And we thank you very much. And I'll make sure to put links to It's Get Your Head Right and also your clinic, which is Simple Psychology, and so that people can follow up if they wish to. And so we'll finish up there, and I will thank you very much, Greg Gardiner, for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. All the best there, Nicholas.
Thank you very much. Bye.